I'd like to call the meeting to order. First off, let's start with the City Council staff report from Deborah A. Owen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. A couple of things to update you for tonight's agenda. Item number 17, which is still kind of being discussed by the Public Services Committee. There'll be a request to defer that. I know they have met once in committee, and they met once on Friday or Thursday, I believe. But I think there'll be a request to defer that. We don't have those notes out for you now because we were concerned when we had the joint meeting at 5 o'clock that you might get lost. But anyhow, just to let you know. And so that's the only one that we have been notified of a deferral for tonight. And then moving on to the election information, we've been working on a water bill insert for some time now. What we have on your overhead screen on your monitors, you can see, is a couple of options. We kind of like this kind of a group of children who are diverse, and so we thought just the layout between this one or that one, it's just kind of crooked. Which again would go in everybody's water bill in your mailing of your bill for your water. And on the back side of that, we would have, as we had in times past, which would be if you voted here in 2008, you'll vote here in 2010. Obviously, for those who voted in the primary and in the general election, we have 57 polling places that we'll be using for the April 13th and the April 27th election. So there will be some changes there because of renting places, and some places aren't available to rent. O'Gorman is one of those places that is not available, so we're moving those voters to a different polling place. But just to kind of help hands-on from the city early on, so people will be more aware of where their polling places are. And then in addition, later on, we'll, of course, put the sample ballot along with the same information available to the voters in the Argus as required by state statute. Any comments on this at all?
Just a quick question, Deborah. Did you say, so regarding the deferral proposal tonight on the possibility of removing caps on transportation services that handle people who are confined to wheelchairs and so forth. Did you say, so we've been hearing from quite a few, and I guess Vernon could answer that just as well probably, but we've been hearing from quite a few people by email, so have we let those people know that we're seriously considering a deferral tonight? Because I just have been telling people when they write to me that we are on for a vote tonight.
I'll divert it to Councilmember Vernon Brown.
I did send an email to Vicki Kirkfleet and Ryan Green, who are active in those, the users, and I haven't heard back from them, but I let them know that the deferral was very likely tonight. And then also, I talked to a city clerk's staff, and it looks like the Public Services Committee will talk about the specific pricing proposed at our March 8th meeting, and then the second reading would go on March 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your question.
And then, yes, sorry, sir.
Go right ahead.
If I could just further information, as you know, the joint meeting between the Lincoln County Commission, the Minnehaha County Commission, and the City of Sioux Falls City Council will be at 5 o'clock, and we'll need to kind of have everybody seated. We did a couple of changes in some seating charts. That was all kind of forwarded to you ahead of time, in part because we make sure our camera guy downstairs knows when you're talking where you're at in terms of sitting. So the three chairs that will change out will be on for leadership. It'll be Ann Hyack, Mayor Dave Munson will stay the same, and Lincoln County Commissioner Jim Schmidt. Those will kind of swap, but otherwise I think we're good to go. We'll just need to get the chairs in place and then run through the microphones and let everybody know how that system works before we start at 5. And then also just to let you know, we've kind of continued to work on other election information stuff. We've got all of our polling places set, and so we'll bring before you at a later time a resolution about that. Again, it's 57 polling places that we'll be using for the regular and the runoff election in April. That will be the same polling places for the most part, we're hoping, for both the city elections and the primary and then the general, to hopefully help voters so that they're not confused about where they're moving between those elections in the same election year. Lastly, there's, as you know, the Charter Revision Commission brought their summary report to you on a week ago. And there's one more ballot item from the council itself, and that language is there before you in a printed off copy. I know there's been some discussion about that, so not looking to discuss that now, but just wanted to alert you that that is at your desk for your consideration. And and also there's the debates that will take place. We have selected dates. The League of Women Voters would be Saturday, March 20th and Saturday, March 27th. And those are the dates they would like to have. They felt that Saturday was a great time to get people out. It is similar to legislative coffees that are used. And instead of having 3 different nights, we would double up on the council debates or forums and having that on March 27th. And the March 20th would be the mayoral forums. So thank you.
Deborah, on the inserts, I like the horizontal version, the bigger picture of the word vote. Any other feedback, though, from anybody? I mean, any objections, thoughts, so she can get done with that?
Thank you.
Hearing none, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Deborah, do they have any times yet for when the debates will be on?
It is somewhat tentative.
March 20th, March 27th.
But we're thinking at 9 o'clock they'll start, 9 to 10:30 for both the mayoral and the city council at-large seats on those respective days that I had mentioned earlier. And then there'll be a half-hour break on March 27th, and then at 11 o'clock to 12:30 will be the candidates on the district side, those candidates who are running for the council district seats. But again, that is we're just thinking that works pretty well for everybody. People kind of get in and out of the Carnegie or at the Orpheum, and so we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Knudsen?
Regarding other city council or candidate forums and mayoral forums, I'm sure the candidates already know what I'm going to say out loud, but I just learned today that the Convention of Visitors Bureau is going to do forums for both the city councilor candidates and the mayoral candidates on March 25th at the convention. It's part of their Convention of Visitors Bureau series. And again, the councilor candidates will debate or have a forum from 11:30 to 12:30 that day, and then the mayoral candidates will speak between 12:30 and 1:30. And if people are interested in attending that and they are not candidates, please let the Convention and Visitors Bureau know. And again, maybe all of you know about this, but I just learned about it today.
Oh, and if I could just add, and thank you, Dee, for mentioning that. I know there are a number of forums around. The ones that will be hosted by the League of Women Voters, it'll be also including the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. They're always a partner with this. The council staff works with that as well because we work with elections, but it is a partnership between the League of Women Voters who moderate that, and then the city or the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce does help with informing that. They do some of their press releases. They notify the media, and perhaps even put ads out. And then we just help in terms of staffing and people calling in and asking their questions. They can call in, and then we give those questions to the League of Women Voters. But just to let you know, that's kind of how that one works. It'll be on Channel 16 and rebroadcast by them as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Next, we have the Mayor Munson's office. Is there anybody here for Dave's office? Seeing nobody. We'll move on to committee reports, the Audit Committee. I think we've got an update from Mitch Oaksall here shortly. Otherwise, no other report that I could report on. Fiscal Committee. Anybody know of anything there? I don't see anybody. We'll just go with no report. Land Use Committee.
Yes, the regularly scheduled Land Use Committee for February has been canceled. We will not have a meeting.
Okay, no meeting. Public Services.
Nothing more to add than what we talked about earlier with the wheelchair transport issue finishing up on the regularly scheduled meeting 5 o'clock March 8th, and then scheduling it for March 15th for the vote.
The item number 17 tonight, you're going to ask.
I'll make a motion to
defer.
defer that to March 15th.
All right, City Council open discussion. Anybody? Anybody? I don't see anybody waving their hand. Okay.
Just a cheerleader here.
Yes, Dee.
I'll talk quickly because I really do have several fun items to tell you about. As you probably all know, that the Sioux Empire Community Theater right now for 3 weekends in a row, and so there are 2 weekends left, February 19th through the 21st and February 26th through the 28th, are performing on Golden Pond. And I went over the weekend, and it's exceptionally good. I mean, just exceptionally good. You almost should not miss it. Tickets are only $15. The box office is open from 12 to 5, Monday through Saturday, and it honestly is just fabulous. The two lead roles, I don't think you could, for amateur theater, I mean, it's just unbelievably good. And then, and maybe I missed this, is a reminder that you all probably saw in your emails today, but kind of a reminder for the candidates out in the audience, besides the ones up here, is that tomorrow morning is our regular breakfast club at 7:30 in the morning at Leonardo's Restaurant in Washington Pavilion. And again, when we call it breakfast club, that's the combination of city councilors from the nearby communities and the school board members from nearby communities and county commissioners. And the topic tomorrow is legislative activity, and I could say more there, but I'll quit. And then also wanted to say that I attended Sports Authority this morning, because you know that I am a representative on that authority, and just a couple really exciting things happening. Again, the Summit League tournament will happen again at our aging arena on March 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And ticket sales are going well. We're about 100 tickets ahead of last year at this point. I'm really hopeful with an older facility that we can keep that tournament until I'm dead, but I don't know if that will happen. But again, if you want more information on that wonderful tournament, you can go to the Sioux Falls Sports Authority website, www.sfsportsauthority.com, and you can find out everything you need to know, and you can buy tickets and so forth at the arena. Again, we're just feeling really good about that tournament. And now that we've done that tournament a couple times, is that we have schools around like Oakland, for instance, has now established a pen pal relationship with one of our elementary schools, and another pep band is going to come in a little bit early, and they're going to go to some of our schools and do workshops and just do motivational kinds of things. And so, it's way more than a tournament. It's a community-wide event, and as time goes on, we plan to continue to develop all those kinds of relationships. And then another Sports Authority item is that, and you'll be hearing more about this from the real stars in Sports Authority soon when they have a press conference, but Sioux Falls Sports Authority is going to host its first marathon on Sunday, September 12th. And again, next week there will be a press conference with lots of details, but again, you can go online right now to that same website and learn more about that. We are, by the way, looking for volunteers for both events. We're in pretty good shape on the Summit League, but if that's something that you have any interest in volunteering, you can go online and volunteer. Brad Coleman, who's a loaned executive to us, is just doing unbelievably good work, just unbelievably good work, and Kevin Lampe is a fabulous chair. I mean, he's just... Their dedication to Sports Authority is way more than I could ever tell you. And then I forgot to tell you a week ago that when some of us were out, a whole bunch of us were out to Municipal League, that I attended a legislative briefing later that day on the Blood Run National Historic Landmark, and I grabbed a few extra flyers, I'm not sure, or booklets. I'm not sure I have enough, but I'll even give mine away. But anyway, I'd just like you all to learn more about the Blood Run National Historic Landmark. That area is technically in Lincoln County, but before long, it'll be in Sioux Falls, the way Sioux Falls is growing. And Mayor Munson led off that presentation to a whole bunch of legislators, and the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce was involved there. Lincoln County commissioners were involved. Minnehaha County commissioners were involved in that briefing. But I was visiting with our Director of Parks and Recreation today about this, and he just said, Dee, that's really just a diamond in the rough, and I think that's a great description. And of course, there's a section of land that's for sale now that you heard about this with the governor's budget speech, I think, and that is the state is trying to raise money to buy some land from some individuals to make that a national, or a state park, state park, not national. And I don't know, that would be a good topic sometime, like even when we have our dinner at the end of some of our terms or something. I was thinking of that today, that, that, I don't know, it's really good. It's really a great project. And also I think that at some point it would be good for this council or the next council and the next mayor to take a little, and the press, to take a little bus trip out there and tour that Blood Run archaeological site. I think that's enough for right now.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too was out in Pierre, same time Dee was out there, and of course we all know what happened to our Senate bill concerning the municipality's ability to raise sales tax for certain specific projects, and I was dismayed, I guess, by that, but I guess it wasn't also unexpected. But I would like it known that the Event Center Task Force is going to be meeting soon, and we are going to try to figure out where do we go to from here. And so if you have strong opinions about that, and you know somebody that's on the Event Center Task Force, now would be a good time to call them and convey your feelings about that subject to them. Myself, I think that we should not give up. I think we should go back out there next year. It won't be an election year. Presumably the economy will be a little bit better. And I think that when some of the legislators go back to their respective communities and find out that 92 communities have signed on in support of that legislation, perhaps it would help them look toward the positive side of what that could be. That's all.
Any other comments, Dee? Go ahead.
Yes, on that same very important, crucial topic for way more than Sioux Falls, I would just like to, on behalf of many of us anyway, I would like to publicly thank the three legislators who had the courage to vote for self-determination for communities throughout the state, not just Sioux Falls. And those were, that's in the local government committee, House Local Government Committee last week. And again, unfortunately, we only picked up 3 votes. Some of us who are on this side of the issue anyway, but those are Representative Dan Lederman from Dakota Dunes, Representative Blake Curd from Sioux Falls, and Representative Darrell Solberg from Sioux Falls. And I can't tell you how much I admire their courage.
Anybody else? I've got to add just a comment myself. I would like to encourage the task force to retool a little bit and keep fighting for this event center. Certainly, we voted as a majority to support their proposal, and it failed, and that's okay. Things have changed. Now, either we can all kind of disband and go our separate ways and hope for a brighter day some other day, or maybe the council here could come together, all of us, and support some kind of a effort to get this event center built. It's clear it's not going to be built with any tax dollars in the short term. And that's okay. I mean, everything changes. We need to adapt to this change and absorb this new challenge and succeed. We've got way too much momentum moving on this project to let it fail and just die out. You think back to the arena and how many times it failed before it was ever built. Using tax dollars may not be the way to do it right now, and that's fine. But let's find another way. Let's find a new way. Let's find a part of the puzzle and put it together. Maybe we can't do it all in one shot or in the next year or two, but we've got to do something. And I think we can. And if we all work together, I think we could probably do it even in these tough economic times. So, Bob, please tell those guys to keep fighting, retool, and get it done.
You can count on that.
Go ahead, Kermit.
Yeah, I guess I would, emphasize that the committee should not focus on a tax increase or a new tax or anything like that, and absolutely no subsidy. But I think it would be appropriate for the committee to try to come up with some different funding sources to present to a new mayor, because in reality, what's going to happen, whoever is the new mayor of Sioux Falls is going to have a tremendous amount of say in this event center, and to have something that you can present to the new mayor, I think is appropriate.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Bob.
I agree with what Mr. Stager says. He's absolutely right, you know, and you know, it's been brought to our attention over and over that a crucial part of this, hopefully we'd have some philanthropic, you know, a philanthropist would come forward and donate some money. But, you know, what you get into there is the old chicken and the egg, which comes first, you know, and it is my belief that we are going to have a good, solid plan to put forth before somebody is going to step forward and invest their reputation and their money, put that on the line for the city of Sioux Falls, you know, towards that event center. So, like I say, I agree with Staggers to a point there, but I also think that there is going to be some public funding of this. There almost always is in these centers of this size, but I would agree also by statements made with others that, you know, some individual philanthropist coming forward with a large amount of money with a big checkbook is crucial. It's crucial to that effort. Who that's going to be, when it's going to be, I don't know. But I believe this. We have to have our house in order before that person will step forward.
Dee, go ahead.
Councilor Jameson, I think that your attitude is really admirable, and I wish actually I was as optimistic or had this positive attitude today on this topic, and it's all to your credit there that I say that in a very complimentary way toward you. I guess I would just like to say, I mean, having been on the city council now for very, very close to 8 years, and knowing that the city of Sioux Falls, with different city councilors, different mayor, and so forth, had a task force or a couple more task force and consultants and more consultants, and studied and studied and studied this issue, and that this very, very, you know, the current task force worked very hard. I mean, I'm not on that task force. I give them so much credit for the amount of personal time they've spent, and obviously they were in touch with the best financial experts in our community as far as financing a task for, or an event center. And for those folks out there that think that other options weren't looked at or whatever, and I don't mean any of your comments today, I just mean, you know, some that I've heard recently, is really hogwash would be one way of putting it. Because seriously, that's rather insulting for those people who have spent 2 years of their time only going to meetings after meetings after meetings on an event center. And I'd also like to say, from when I first went on city council, or before I even before I was even elected, I mean, event center, event center, event center. We talked about it. I mean, we talked about the topic to death, and the price tag is obviously growing more and more and more and more. But I agree with you that the Washington Pavilion and the Convention Center, it took 3 votes. And, you know, and obviously I'm an optimist that we'll just keep working at it. But this was a major setback, not just for Sioux Falls, but for the entire state. And so I think we might as well just speak English here and just call it what it is. And I am really very disappointed in the legislators who voted against this self-determination measure.
Vernon?
I was just going to say, I think it's ironic that it was labeled a Sioux Falls bill by the media because there were 92 communities that supported this. You know what? I have confidence in the events task force that they'll figure out other methods. We can get it done in Sioux Falls. What I worry about is communities like Wall that need a main street, or Keystone that needs bridges, or Hot Springs that needs water infrastructure. Those communities are not going to have the same kind of options that Sioux Falls will have, and I'm afraid that it has truly set the state back.
Go ahead, Bob.
You know, it was a disappointment, and it was kind of dismaying to me, because I'm an optimist. I might get kind of grouchy once in a while, but I am optimistic about the people in South Dakota, the people in Sioux Falls in particular. And times like this here, when we talk about things not going our way, and shall we hang in there, what should we do, and a lot of hand wringing and all that stuff, I like to talk about my church. I belong to one of the mainstream denominations downtown here, and years ago, when the Depression was first starting, my church decided, or they talked about, we got to build a new building. And then the Depression hit, and all those old Norwegians, boy, they grabbed their heart in their hip pocket at the same time and said, we can't do this. It costs too much money. Times are tough. We just can't do it now. You know, But the ladies were the ones that said, we're going to do it. We're going to step forward. And they took their knitting money and their pie money and put it into a fund, and they started it. And, you know, I'd hate to think where that church would be today without that kind of optimism coming out. And I think that we're going to tap into that optimism. We're going to find it. Because, you know, South Dakotans are a tough bunch of people. Well, they went through that depression, you know, the windstorms that came through here, and I go to some of these other little towns out there in South Dakota, and I worry about them, man, because they look like they're from a third world nation. There's just not much left there. And, you know, but I think that they're augured in, they're handling it. You know, think about this winter, how tough that's been on all of us in the city streets and our budgets and you know, everybody getting to work and people who don't get around too good. Yet, here we are, you know, nobody left the state en masse. So I think, you know, just the nature of who we are, we're gonna find a way and we're going to get her done. So.
Okay, Dee?
I forgot to also say that I'm really appreciative of those people who testified on behalf of the rest of us who could not be out there that day to local government committee. I know that Mayor Munson drove out on very icy, dangerous roads to testify for our community and has worked so tirelessly on this project throughout his entire administration. And I also appreciate David Owen, the president of the South Dakota Chamber of Commerce, for testifying that morning. And again, the list is fairly long. And actually, you know, a thought that I had this weekend, but I'm not, you know, but the timing is just not quite right, because some of us who are really serious about building an event center, who are elected officials up here, are busy with our own campaigns or our whatever, spouses' campaigns or whatever. But I mean, the thought occurred to me over the weekend is what would be very interesting is if leaders from the 92 communities throughout South Dakota put their efforts together and put this issue on the ballot and let the let people throughout South Dakota vote whether or not they would like to make their own decisions or have the legislators and peer make all their decisions for them.
Okay, Dee's fired up. Anybody else? Any other comments? All right, well, thank you. Let's move on to our presentations. I guess we're starting with Rich Oaksall, Internal Auditor.
Good afternoon, City Council. Rich Oaksall, Lead Internal Auditor. And we have an audit report on the Information Technology Division of the city, and that's a division under Central Services. And with us today, we have the management team. We have the director, Mike Hall. We have John Clemmy, the manager, and Jerry Haas, the supervisor. And it was a pleasure working with these gentlemen on this audit. Once in a while, we have an audit report where we don't have any recommendations. And a lot of people think auditors are terribly disappointed that we don't have any findings. But in our opinion, based on our audit work, the internal controls appeared to be properly designed and working effectively to mitigate the various risks that are associated with information technology. When I talk about these controls, are some examples, and we tested many of these controls. But one example would be, what happens when an employee is terminated, or they resign, or they retire. What's the process of terminating their access to the network, and how does that work? Is that working effectively? That's an example of a control that we tested. Other things that we tested would be in the data center at City Hall, where we keep our servers and our sensitive IT equipment. Do we have fire suppression equipment? Is it the right kind? Is it maintained properly? Is it tested? Do we have an emergency power system? Is that tested? And we found all that to be working properly. Another example is background checks. For example, when we hire employees for certain positions, especially sensitive positions like information technology, are we performing a background check on these new hires to make sure that they don't have a criminal background? And we found those controls are working effectively. And just as a note, that there was a change in the law last year. Human Resources had worked with Municipal League to change the law, so that now when we do a background check on a future employee, that we can look at not only the state database, criminal database, but also the federal databases. And in previous years, they were not able to do that. But now with the change in the law, we can look beyond just the state of South Dakota to make sure that we're not hiring somebody in a sensitive position with a criminal background. But anyway, the report details the various controls that we looked at, and what we found as we tested those. I'd like to note on page 3, we had a section that we called Noteworthy Accomplishments. We always like to point that out if we find something in our audit that is especially noteworthy. And we had a couple paragraphs in there about something called server virtualization. I'm not going to go into a great deal of depth on that because it gets a little technical, but just as an analogy, when you're in traffic, especially at rush hour, and you look around, you see a lot of cars out there that just have 1 or 2 people in them, and it causes a lot of congestion. There's a lot of cars on the road. The analogy is that with server virtualization, that what you're trying to do is make more effective use of those cars, so to speak. Instead of having 1 or 2 people in the car, you try and get 3 or 4 people in there. The same way with server virtualization. That's hard to say. But anyway, what they're trying to do is have one physical server serving as multiple servers. And that creates efficiencies as far as electricity. You don't need as much electricity in your data center for powering the servers or providing the air conditioning. There's savings in cost because you don't have to buy as many physical servers because you're using them more efficiently. And we found that the IT division was very proactive in making that change in their data center. And in fact, some of the other IT shops in town or in the area were looking towards Sioux Falls, the city of Sioux Falls, for, how did you guys do it? Can you show us how to do it? So we just want to point that out. And another thing that they're using is when they have to restore a file. For example, let's say you're an employee and you delete a file, a Word document or something, an Excel spreadsheet, and you go, oh, why did I do that? I just deleted it. I need that. So you call up IT, you call up the help desk, and in years past, they could restore that file, but it might take hours while they look through the tape backups that they do. With the new technology that IT is using now, within 10 or 20 minutes, a lot of times they can restore that file because of the new technology that they're using. So we want to point that out to you. And I think that's about it for this report. As I said, once in a while we have a report and there's no audit findings, but that doesn't disappoint us as an audit team. That we like to find that. And we just want to point that out to you. Now, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those, or IT management could try to answer.
Go ahead, Kermit.
Yes, Rich, is there any policy of IT in regard to tracking messages? What I mean by that is, I remember, it's been a few years ago, I can't even remember the specifics of the issue, but from what I understand, there was an attempt to find out if somebody within the city had sent an email to the Argus leader. Do we have policies dealing with those kind of issues, whether that can be done or under what circumstances or whatever?
That wasn't an audit objective, but I think maybe my call.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any policies on that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mike Hall, Director of Central Services. I remember that incident, and the response from me at that time was, yes, there are policies in place. Each email user is guaranteed security of their email. It essentially comes down to 2 trusted agents within our IT division that have the ability to go in and look at those files. And that's our IT manager and our IT supervisor.
Trying to remember that incident, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was a request from the city attorney's office for that to happen. Was that true? And I mean, can anybody just kind of, or in other words, who can tell these 2 individuals, hey, track this message, where did it go, or whatever?
If it doesn't pertain to that department, we maintain the security of everyone's email account. If that would clearly be a breach, and that would not be supported. You'd have to have the authority and control over your department. If a director, for example, wants information regarding their own department, we can provide that because even though each user, the expectation is that you have that privacy, it is still city property and city information. but it has to fall within the scope and perspective of the person having the authority. In this case, it would be a department. So the only ones that would have access to your information would be yourselves as a council group, if you will.
And then somebody in the planning department, Mike, would have authority to ask for that, and somebody in Public Works, Mark, would have the authority to ask for that. So department heads basically are the people that can ask for that information.
And I'm a little gray on the specifics, but perhaps if I can just give a general, let's just say a department has concerns about an employee's performance, and they would like, they have reasonable suspicion to believe that maybe there's a misuse of the city's computer system or the email or so forth. That director has to ask me, the director of central services overseeing IT, for permission for our folks to go in and get that information. Okay. So anything that would fall under the purview of the city council leadership would go back to council leadership, and you would have that control over yourself.
Well, the council leadership could track council members' messages.
Well, again, with a city department, you'd have a director in place. We yield to whomever you identify as leadership amongst your group, but we've not had any requests to date on any other council member to look at anybody's email. So I've not had that situation arise. But clearly, I think if it came, we would have to refer that back to somebody at the council level saying we've gotten a request for this. And to me, the most would be council leadership. Does that make sense?
It does.
Or does it cause you
I
more
hope you
concern
never get a
now?
request like that.
Again, there's been no request from anyone in this council group for any of that type of information.
Okay.
But that's how it's handled at the department level.
Maybe just to clarify, was I incorrect when I said the city attorney's office asked for that request a few years ago?
And again, I'm a little gray
Yeah,
on
I
it.
am too.
I vaguely remember, but I do remember giving you a response at the time that should have matched today's. And again, the IT group treats that security and confidential responsibility as the holy grail. And again, there's only two individuals that have access to that. You know, we run filtering systems and so forth, and email, big packets, might get quarantined for a time. Well, someone has to go out and look at that to see if it's business related, make sure it's not a virus or something like that. And again, that's relegated to just two people in the IT department, both upper management people.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd just like to thank the auditor's comments, his professionalism, working with our schedule and our staff to complete this report. And the only other comment, I would like to recognize our IT manager, John Clemmy, is here, if John would stand up. And then our newest addition is Jerry Haas. Jerry has joined our group less than a year ago, and he's been a huge asset to the City of Sioux Falls so far. And that division takes so much pride in providing the services, making sure that the security's there, that we have redundant connectivity, and that it's a virtual world, and that it's seamless, and that there's no interruption in services. Thank you.
Dee, go ahead.
Not a question, but just a comment. I was just going to congratulate the IT people for doing such a nice job that there aren't even any recommendations by the internal auditor.
And by the way, for Channel 16 viewers, you can we put the audit reports on the city website after the presentation, and if you get on Granicus, obviously you can, I believe, see the reports as they're discussed. So,
Okay, thanks, Rich.
okay, thank you.
All right, we have one more presentation we'll try to get through real fast. The housing study presentation from Scott Knudsen with Community Research Partners. This is on the Affordable Housing Study project. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. My name is Scott Knudsen, no relation as far as I know to Council Member Knudsen. Community Partners Research is a Minnesota-based corporation. Well, maybe I'll just dispense with that. Hopefully you all have the handouts that came with it. We're a Minnesota-based corporation. We've done housing studies within a 5-state region, including Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Granted, a lot of our work is done in the state of Minnesota, which is where we are based, but we've also done a fair amount of work outside of the state of Minnesota. And of late, a lot of that's been in the state of South Dakota and North Dakota. Our company experience, what we do a lot of the time is work on these kinds of projects, housing-related studies. Those can be comprehensive studies, kind of what I'd label the Sioux Falls project being, a kind of a broad-based look at housing issues and the entire community. We'll do project-specific studies for a specific housing development, rental development. We'll do program-specific studies. Most commonly, it's going to be something like the low-income housing tax credit program, where there's fairly strict requirements that need to be met in order to fulfill some requirements. Our company also does grant applications that we work on. We do program development and delivery to a limited extent, and we do actually quite a bit of disaster recovery work, primarily related to flood recovery and things like that. It wasn't something we necessarily set out to do, but it's just something we've gravitated into over time, and over the last 10 to 12 years have done a lot of work in that area as well. We believe that we've done more than 200, we haven't actually counted them up, more than 200 housing studies for different cities and counties. Primarily, we work for local units of government, cities and counties. Some of the work, however, is done for private developers, housing agencies, housing authorities. I throw that into the realm of the public sector. And we do quite a bit of work for nonprofit housing groups, those that are trying to promote affordable housing and build affordable housing. We are on an approved market analyst list in the states of Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. Some of the comparable projects that we had identified in our proposal when we submitted it to the City of Sioux Falls was we've done a lot of work in the cities of Fargo and Moorhead, primarily for the City of Fargo and the Fargo Housing Authority. And right now, actually, I just sent one off last week for a project-specific study in the City of Fargo. But we've done a couple of broad-based comprehensive studies in that community as well. We've done a couple of studies, broad-based ones for the City of Rochester, Minnesota, which I think is somewhat comparable with the City of Sioux Falls, especially given the medical technology and the medical service industry that's developed. We work extensively with the City of Mankato. We've done a number of projects with them. Appleton, Fox Cities, portion of Wisconsin, a little bit smaller, but still an aggregated area that's somewhat comparable to the City of Sioux Falls. Out of coincidence, Appleton called last Friday and asked me to start working on a housing study update for them. I told them about this project, and so they've allowed me a few months to put it off into the future before we'll work there. But a lot of our business ends up being repeat business, where we work with different cities and counties over a number of years. We like to develop those working relationships, and apparently I think that works for some of our customers as well. We've worked in the cities of East Grand Forks, a lot of that was flood recovery, but we also were very active in housing and community development, as well as some of the Twin Cities metropolitan area. In the state of South Dakota, our projects include multiple studies or projects for the City of Aberdeen, the City of Brookings, where we did a major citywide study, City of Madison, and many, many years ago now, the City of Winter. We'd done a project, but that was quite a few years back. In Madison, we've also done some follow-up work for them on some project-specific rental developments. I know that we're cutting it short for time. I know you wanted to be out here in 45 minutes, and so a lot of the other bullets here I'm not going to necessarily jump into in great detail. Needless to say, we do a fair amount of research that's statistical in nature, where we look at demographic information, Census Bureau records, and the like. We also collect a lot of information locally, including sales records. We're going to do a rental housing survey, that kind of thing. We'll also be doing a number of interviews with local officials, local stakeholders. And Councilmember Anderson, I think, has already started compiling a list of some people for me to talk to. That was passed on to me today, and we'll be collecting some additional names of people to talk to over the next couple of months. In the end, we're going to have a study that's going to be comprised of multiple sections. Some of those that we've identified would be a demographic and projection section, a section on income and affordability, and that's been stressed to me already in this study, that that's one of the key ingredients of the Sioux Falls analysis, is to look at affordable housing issues and what constitutes affordable housing, so that point has already been made. Existing housing information, what's on the ground, what's been built, what are sale prices looking like, those types of things. An extensive rental housing analysis based on the rental survey. A real unique component for the City of Sioux Falls, there's a windshield survey, a condition analysis that's going to have us rating about 4,800 or more individual structures in the City of Sioux Falls, and we were working on that a little bit today, the logistics of how we're going to collect that and record that. That's going to be quite a chore, and I actually have to say we've never done anything quite of that scale before, and I hope we significantly didn't underbid it, because that's a lot of houses to look at. We're going to be looking at some employment and economic data, some best practices section, what some other communities may have done that Sioux Falls can benefit from. We're going to examine some public policy issues to the extent they arise. If that comes up in some of the research, if there's things that can be done from the city perspective. We'll talk about some of the local agencies and resources and compare notes on what they're doing. and then compile a findings and recommendations section. And I've left open one additional bullet down there, other sections as needed, because we don't exactly know at this stage of the game what is going to be uncovered, and so we'll try and talk about those things to the extent that they are made known to us. In the end, then, the findings and recommendations section would be grouped into a series of like-minded types of topics, rental housing types of findings and recommendations, home ownership issues, issues that may relate to housing rehabilitation, policy-related issues, other issues that can be identified. So that's a real quick overview, and I don't know how I did for time. I started talking really fast, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction to me and a little bit of an introduction to the project that we're planning to do. So,
Scott, you did very well. Go ahead, Dee.
Mr. Knutson, I like that name, by the way. Is that do you does Community Partners Research have a website? Or I was just wondering for those people who are listening on Channel 16 that if they want to contact you or check your website or.
You sure can, but I'll have to apologize in advance because we have a very, very weak website, in my opinion.
That's fine. How about an email address or a phone number or?
Sure. I mean, if people want to give me a call, that would actually be fine. Maybe what I'll do is it's area code 651-777-1813.
Thank you.
And so that would probably be the easiest way. One of the things we do intend to be is in Sioux Falls quite a lot during this process. So, yeah, if people are interested in getting together and talking.
Why don't you repeat that number one more time, please?
651-777-1813. And this will inspire me to go back and actually improve our website, so it's a little bit better place to look at. But again, I apologize for it, but a lot of the work we do is, again, based on relationships and referrals and things like that. And we've never relied overly heavily on an internet presence or anything like that to find the work that we do. So,
Scott, one more. Kermit?
Yes. I noticed here in your study contents you have down public policy issues. Are you going to take a look at the regulation of housing that we have in Sioux Falls to see if we can maybe reduce some of that so we can make housing more affordable?
I'm not an expert at all in that field, and we identified that in the interview that we went through, and I think in the proposal that we submitted. I mean, we're not planning and zoning experts. We do housing research work. So what we promised to do in this section is talk to some of the development community, try and identify if there are issues that are out there, and bring those to the forefront in the findings and recommendations. We may not offer an opinion on some of those issues because I'm sure there's 2, 3, possibly 4 sides to some of these things. But to the extent they come up in our discussions with the development community, yeah, we'd like to identify those for you.
Oh, okay.
So.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Yeah. Vernon, go ahead.
Just quickly, when we interviewed Scott, he talked about Aberdeen and Brookings, and I visited with Mayor Leifson of Aberdeen and Mayor Reed of Brookings, and they come highly, highly recommended. So they have done good work in those communities. And also, I want to recognize Southeastern Council of Government. CCOG helped us do this research, and they did that for free as part of our membership. So I see Sean Pritchett here from CCOG, so we want to thank him for being involved in that process and guiding us down this path as well.
Okay, Scott, the bar's pretty high for you.
Thank you.
Oh, Kenny, I'm sorry.
No question. I just want to say thank you to the City Council for supporting the Affordable Housing Initiative, also Mayor Munson. And I think that we got a lot of work in front of us, but I think that we're very excited to have Scott's company down here to help us do this. Also want to recognize Randy Bartunik for also being a part of this, and Jim Schmidt from Sioux Falls Housing. Basically, we are looking at having some public input meetings, and as far as with the codes, I have spoken with Ron Bell and asked him if he would also meet with Scott to discuss some of those zoning issues.
Okay, thanks. Bob?
I too, I want to thank CCOG for the amazing job they did, and Randy Bartunik for getting in here too. It was nice to have a resource like that. And Scott, I'm sure you're going to be talking to those guys and find out just how amazing their abilities and resources are. And I too, I spent a weekend going over those 6 reports, and you were number 4. I was just about asleep when I got to yours, and then I choked through the other 2, and I went back to yours, and I was electrified. It was like when you hit a baseball with a bat, and you know that thing's going to go. When I read your report, I just felt strongly you were the ones, and so I was really elated when the decision was made to bring your company in here, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. I was afraid you were going to say it did put you to sleep. But
You put me to sleep? No, that wasn't it. So.
Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, the executive session's been rescheduled for the 22nd, so I think we move to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Okay, now